This is the Kofford Books AuthorCast. Russell Stevenson is an independent historian and author of Black Mormon, The Story of Elijah Abels, and For the Cause of Righteousness, A Global History of Blacks in Mormonism from 1830 to 2013, published by Greg Kofford Books in 2014. He has also been published in the Journal of Mormon History, Dialogue, and the Oxford University Press's American National Biography Series. Winner of the 2015 Best Book Award from the Mormon History Association, the strength of For the Cause of Righteousness rests on its international focus on the topic of race and religion, as well as offering both a theoretical and documentary grounding. In this episode, Russell will be reading from the preface of For the Cause of Righteousness.
Preface. Growing Up White. It is my church as much as it is yours. Bishop Edwin Woolley. The Lord our God hath put us to silence, and given us water of gall to drink, because we sinned against the Lord. Jeremiah 8:14. A confession. I am a white Mormon man. I grew up in the White Wilderness, Lincoln County, Wyoming. There are no stoplights, and the nearest department store is 2 hours away. In 2010, demographers identified all counties with fewer than 6 people per square mile as frontier counties. In Lincoln County, racial diversity cropped up spontaneously and served primarily as interesting novelties for my whiteness-drenched Mormon community. My family's idea of an engaging night at home was looking up various headings in Bruce R. McConkie's Mormon Doctrine, 2nd edition, of course. I, like myriad others, accepted the pre-1978 priesthood ban as advertised. I didn't really bother to engage the doctrinal issues undergirding it. One of the tragic luxuries of living a white narrative is the ability to entertain the delusion that non-white populations and their struggles are, at best, irrelevant. My hometown was one of the last Mormon colonies settled in the 19th century. Made up of hard-working, stolid folk, my community exuded the qualities Mormonism values in its white pioneer tradition. Year after year, cattle ranchers and farmers powered through negative 40-degree Fahrenheit winters, even as they worked a second day job for the man to make ends meet. Exposure to urban issues or most ethnic diversity came through the media, or through the handful of students of color generally adopted through the school system. And for the rural poor, the media amounted to 3 television stations received by erecting the rabbit ears antenna. We lived in a modern-day Mayberry, where boys could play football in the streets, and a local drive-in provided the best food in town. The information age resounded in America's small towns. My home received internet service in the mid-1990s, and it unleashed a wave of information upon our cloistered community. Even with my parents' controversy-free book collection, I had worked through the various Mormon narratives I had been raised with. The Mormon narrative of Sunday school, of home evenings, and of Ivan Barrett's Joseph Smith and the Restoration. The internet opened up an entirely new conversation for me. I learned not only of seer stones, but also polygamy, polyandry, and most importantly for this book, Elijah Abels, a black priesthood holder, lauded for his zeal for the cause of righteousness. I could not square Elijah's experiences with what I thought I knew, so I put his memory aside in my box of what I thought were irrelevant but interesting curiosities. Mormon missions can do a lot of things to Mormon young people. They give some confidence and others humility. My mission rewired my racial makeup. As a Hmong-speaking missionary in California, my active engagement with the white community was limited. I spent my time interpreting for paramedics, eating pig brains, and explaining that the bearded man with the red robe was Jesus of Nazareth. I came to believe that Zion, including the institutional church, should be a safe haven and a refuge for the downtrodden and oppressed. Zion looks a little different, and perhaps a little truer, in the slums. My mission experience mirrored Elijah Abel's Mormonism a little more than that of my parents. I spoke regularly with African Americans and struggled to look them in the eye as they quoted Acts 10:34, God is no respecter of persons. I sorted through various explanations, often preferring what I call the dispensationalist explanation. That is, that in God's grand scheme of things, He planned for different races to receive priesthood blessings at different times. It was neat, clean, and precedented in Holy Scripture. As Joseph Smith would tell Orson Hyde when Hyde postulated a theory, there was but one serious objection to it. It is not true. Mormonism celebrates the idea of resounding revelations and overflowing visions. How could the saints have stumbled so badly on a matter so important to the salvation of the human family? Would not a prophet have sought to correct his people from excluding a large percentage of the human family from his blessings? That the Mormon collective could influence the leadership has been a recurring theme throughout Mormon scripture and modern Latter-day Saint history. Religion is made on the ground as well as it is revealed from Mount Sinai. That godly communities can render themselves unworthy of revelation is a well-established tradition in Judeo-Christian and Mormon texts. In the Book of Mormon, an ancient prophet in America taught that he that will harden his heart, the same receiveth the lesser portion of the word, a proviso that does not exclude word received from Mormon church leadership. In another episode, God's people had become so wicked that their commander, Mormon, felt that they had been left to themselves, that the Spirit of the Lord did not abide in us. They had become weak like unto our brethren. Mormon 2:26. God commands Mormon, their prophet and military commander, to withhold counsel from his followers, ordering him to stand as an idle witness, while he watches them self-destruct. Mormon 3:16. In the Old Testament, the Israelites requested that Moses speak with them, but they continued, Let not God speak with us, lest we die. And they stood afar off, while Moses spoke with the Lord. In another text, the Lord silences the prophet Ezekiel from speaking to the people of God, because they were a rebellious house. God continued with details, I will make thy tongue cleave to the roof of thy mouth, that thou shalt be dumb, and shalt not be to them a reprover. In modern times, Joseph Smith, speaking on behalf of the Lord, declared that vanity and unbelief have brought the whole church under condemnation. As the saints developed their racial attitudes, they were also a profoundly small minority struggling to survive in an America ill-disposed to welcoming them. A wide corpus of literature has demonstrated that minority religious groups must develop strategies to navigate within the larger community. In J. Cameron Carter's magisterial work, Race, a Theological Account, he concludes that race and racism were a social arrangement that allowed Christianity to coexist with the rise of Western civilization. Mormonism shared this impulse, an almost existential need to negotiate and compromise in a futile effort to survive. Joseph once quipped that getting anything into the heads of this generation has been like splitting hemlock knots with a corn dodger for a wedge and a pumpkin for a beetle. Yet, as resistant as they were to Joseph Smith's teachings, they felt entirely comfortable adopting the racial attitudes prevalent in 19th century America. Even Joseph Smith entertained it on occasion. When church leaders released Official Declaration No. 2 in 1978, it was not only the dawning of a long-promised day, it was also the close of a very long night.
That was Russell Stevenson, author of For the Cause of Righteousness, A Global History of Blacks and Mormonism, from 1830 to 2013, available in hardback, paperback, and ebook at gregkofford.com.